So back in 2020, it seems like it was a long time ago. Obviously, we went into COVID and we went through a lot of transformation in this industry. And there's an organization called the Hollywood Professional Association where we work together to start working on enabling a bunch of technologies referred to as virtual production. And it was my role within Amazon Web Services. And actually, I realized we didn't even introduce ourselves, so why don't we start with that? So my name is Jack Wenzinger. I'm based in Colorado. I lead the global partner strategy for content production and game tech partners. I have the privilege of being able to support industry-wide technology leaders like the people here as they're leveraging AWS to support their customer base. So Laura, would you like to?
Absolutely. My name is Laura Tedosio. I'm the CEO of Arch Platform Technologies. We deploy and enable full end-to-end production studios in the cloud on AWS. And we can do that very quickly through our orchestration engine, automation, and our machine image pipeline.
Hi, I'm James Uren. I'm the technical director at Mosys, and we do end-to-end virtual production solutions. We started in robotics, then camera tracking, and now we use the native vanilla Unreal Engine to do full virtual production from end-to-end, both LED, AR, and green screen.
My name is Niall Hendry. I'm head of partnerships at Move AI. At Move AI, we create markerless motion capture. So we use a combination of video and pose data to create a high-fidelity markerless motion capture data stream or file, removing the need for mocap suits.
All right, so we're going to kind of kick this off with giving a little bit of landscape as far as how Amazon Web Services kind of got into this and our strategy. And our strategy, candidly, is a content lake. We believe that the aggregation of content and metadata from set capture into AWS can be centralized and secure, but provide global collaboration capabilities. So essentially, bring all of the best technologies to the table to where subject matter experts and creatives can create the best content on the planet. So we did need to work out a system for slide change since the slide went out. So I was told Team America signal for help. There we go. Excellent. There we go. So if you want to see the graduation of our progress from back in 2020 to today, View Studios and AWS work together with with a group of our partners to put on a virtual production content supply chain, which is presently being demonstrated over in West Hall at 1701. And essentially what we did was we have an internal production company called Fuzzy Pixel, which created a virtual racetrack. And essentially, we have a smart car that we dressed up like a race car, and we filmed a human being going in and doing a race for the show. That was enabled through Red Camera, which now has Red Connect, which is a direct connection from the camera to S3 for upload of raw materials. AOTA, of course, supported us, Blackmagic, NVIDIA, Small HD, and Silverdraft. But we're showing the full container of capabilities that go across doing a full virtual production set. So from studio management, Arch and Total Live provided collaboration, Weka from high performance storage, Cloud Soda for our data movement, and they also do some capacity planning tools for helping you cost and structure how you're managing your data in the cloud. Virtual Art Department, or VAD, as you're going to hear us talk about quite a bit. We have a full solution for that that's being represented. Of course, sound and picture editorial, and then color grade and quality control, which we're leveraging Amazon CDI, which is a protocol technology that is our response for SMPTE 2110. But what that does in content production land is that enables 12-bit 444 high-fidelity color grade workflows and quality control, which is critical for film and TV production. So can we go to the next slide? All right, so this is actually the same slide I showed back in 2020, my first talk with Arch Platform and Mosys, and I think these guys all remember that when we were, a little bit fresher in this industry. But essentially, the strategy has not changed a great deal. There is a new element and a new disruptor at this show we certainly want to talk about, but candidly, when you build out these types of LED production stages, there is a major investment in LED, GPU, and storage. And our premise is that, look, that's a 5-year depreciation schedule, and 1 year later, all 3 of those salesmen are back at your door. And it's, hey, I have better pixel pitch. I have another way of avoiding moire. Or on the GPU side, I have a much faster GPU, which they always do. And of course, on the storage side, it's always getting denser and cheaper and faster. But essentially, this is where the cloud-enabled strategy comes in, is the storage and the GPU compute and the services can be balanced out and harmonized with a good cloud strategy. And that was our premise back in 2020, and we've proven it to be true. And so what we're going to do is talk with our panelists here as far as their experience through each of those phases. And we'll start with Laura, on the pre-production side. Laura's company, do you want to kind of explain what it is that you do and how you enable virtual art department capabilities from the digital content creators that are creating the 2D, 3D assets, or from the storage components? Basically, you have a veneer that covers all that complexity.
Yeah, thanks, Jack. So basically, Arch Platform Technologies builds these entire ecosystems in the cloud in AWS very, very quickly within 45 minutes. So we have a SaaS dashboard. It fronts 2 pieces of technology, an orchestration engine and a machine image pipeline. And with that orchestration engine, we can build out these secure VPCs with networking, workstations, storage, license and server, connection manager, broker. So you can do all the things in the cloud that you need to do for any kind of creative workload. And so what I'm going to be talking about today and what we're showing over in the AWS booth is how we can stand up these facilities to do creative workloads, in particular virtual art department. And virtual art department is essentially just another name for what people have been doing before in terms of pre-production, right? Concept, storyboards, creating assets, creating an Unreal world, texturizing the assets that you create. All of those things you can now do in the cloud. And that's important because what's happening is you're bringing artists to the data rather than bringing data to the artists. And so when you create a virtual art department, it's not only used in the pre-production phase, it can be incredibly valuable on the day you're doing that shoot, and I can talk about an example where that happened to one of our customers, but also after the shoot, right? Because all of that data is still there, so you can do the editorial and the color and the sound and the rest of the finishing. And all that data has really never left your, in our case, your storage cluster, except for that one moment where you have to send it down to set. So, in case of a virtual art department, you have a Perforce server in the cloud, and then you create an edge Perforce server on set. You drive down those assets, you shoot, and then you immediately send that data back from the set to a S3 bucket, and then you can immediately start doing string outs and the other things that you need to do with that data as it's coming back. One of the things I do want to talk about is how you can use this virtual art department on the day of the shoot. So we have a customer that was doing a marketing piece with a major American car company. The car company had sent them a model for the car, and they had an artist that had colored that car. And everything was ready. They had the world built. Everybody came to set that day to shoot. And the representative from the car company said, "We can't shoot with you today." And they said, "Why?" They said, "We don't sell that car. That color of that car is nothing that's like the color of that we have available in that particular car." So immediately they had to go back to the artist, pull the asset out of Perforce. The artist had to change it and retexturize it. They had to push it back down to set to the local Perforce server, and they were able to do that. So they didn't have to cancel the shoot. They didn't have to, basically send data back to the artist wherever they were. They were able to have that kind of remote insurance policy, basically, so that they could fix anything on the set that they needed to change that day.
That's fantastic. I also know that there's a creator by the name of Haz Dalal who owns Hazimation, and he was one of the people that we kind of launched off onto cloud ideas when this first started, and we did a blog post called Rise of the Micro Studio. And from his perspective, being able to leverage the cloud in what he was doing, he was able to finish his movie, which was recently launched, and now he's doing video game technology off of it. But when I said Micro Studio, I meant it. I mean, he was 3 people. I just ran into him at the Game Developer Conference, and his company is now 20 people. It's expanding. It's creating new divisions. but they're all remote operators. They're all remote creators. They're leveraging the cloud for what the cloud is good for, which is remote collaboration and creativity, which is fantastic. So when we started this, though, when you talk about a virtual art department, it not only includes the DCC applications, but you also have to be able to take other sources of data in, right? So there's photogrammetry as a piece of it, but there's also mocap. And so one of the new disruptors that's at the table, as we mentioned, is obviously machine learning. And we've got Niall here from Move.ai, who represents probably one of the most disruptive technologies I've seen when it comes to motion capture.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of talk around AI in general in the industry at the minute, but our practical use of artificial intelligence is fundamentally to understand what a human being is in video from single and multiple angles, then to amalgamate that data stream and actually give out a high quality mocap file or stream without the need for suits, right? It eliminates the need for suits entirely. You can trap multiple people within a scene. And yeah, it's funny you mentioned Haz actually. Haz was actually one of our early adopters, which probably won't surprise you. And we really have built a couple of ways for creators like Haz to leverage both the power of the cloud and devices in his pocket. So we recently launched an iPhone app that allows you to control multiple iPhones and mocap someone, but then using the scale of AWS, uploads directly to S3, spin up an instance when we need it, runs in neural network, spits back the file. That all happens, in under 2 minutes. So content creators now are not, in terms of this workflow, it can fit quite a few different places along the workflow now, where in the art department, if you want to do previs, or if you're actually on the set doing stuff, there's also a real-time version we've just launched with Disguise down the road. Ultimately, what we're trying to do is, across that high level and long tail, across the creators like Haz, is democratize that access to high-quality mocap data.
I will say that you were the one person that made me change this diagram. This diagram had not changed for 3 years.
Okay.
And I had to add
I don't
motion
see a
capture.
Move logo in there, though.
I hadn't thought motion capture would be the one to move to the cloud, but you've done great work. Do you have any other customer examples that you can talk about as far as?
So in terms of this workflow in particular, there are a couple of large production houses in LA doing a lot of streaming content. I'll say no more than that. Who are using for previs, right? So their art department, again, ultimately they were going, look, we don't want to spend 10 grand a day on a mocap studio. We can just give it to the animators. They can ideate. They can, create whatever they want. They can do blocking. And ultimately, they're using that at a mass scale at the minute on a daily basis to be able to actually accelerate their content creation pipeline.
I got to say, as much as I enjoyed watching my son wear the unitard with with the spots on it, it led to a lot of comedy. I realized that
they're not very forgiving, to be honest.
So why don't we move on a little bit and head on into on-set collaboration? Because I know, James, you and I we met during the Virtual Production Fellowship, which
Correct,
I got to admit was a bit like a digital spirit walk in the middle of COVID, being able to escape work for 5 weeks and get indoctrinated to this industry, which I love. But that was where James and I met. And James came to me with a napkin idea. You want to talk a little bit about that?
Sure, yeah. So the idea was based off of, there's not very many limitations with the Unreal Engine, but there is one, and that is that you are limited to real-time, single GPU. You can kind of use 2 GPUs, but you're basically limited in what you can do. And actually, Unreal can do a lot more than that. If you don't have to run in real time, then Unreal can give really high quality visual effects, quality graphics out. So at Moses, we make camera tracking systems. So we're a hardware company primarily, but we work with the Unreal Engine, very heavily. And our camera tracking system is an optical inside-out system. It's called Star Tracker, and it plugs straight into Unreal and other tools as well, including Disguise and others. But what we want to do is take that really accurate tracking data and use it in post-production. So for a long time now, for something like 5 years, we've been able to record and timestamp with time code the tracking data and the lens distortion data that you're actually, as you're filming. So, director says roll cameras, we also record on the tracking data. So we're picking up that camera animation, every take. And we've been doing that for a while. And people have been taking that data off into traditional visual effects tools like Nuke and Maya and 3ds Max and so on. But we can also take that same data and re-render again with Unreal. Unreal has a tool called the Movie Render Queue, and it allows you to do all sorts of really interesting and high-quality render techniques that support the visual effects compositing downstream. So you can produce ProRes files, and Avid DNX files for post-viz and for editorial. But you can also produce big multi-layer 160 megaframe EXRs, linear with Cryptomatte ID passes inside, depth passes inside. All this stuff is amazing for someone on a Flame Suite or in a Nuke compositor that's able to to finish those CG elements. But here's the stickler, it takes a long time to render at those high qualities. And of course, everybody wants it right now. So this is where the cloud comes in. And what we realized we could do is automate the entire process in the cloud and leverage that wonderful parallel nature of the cloud. So from a creative point of view, the collaboration is the strongest thing. But from my side of things, technically, the strongest thing about cloud is the ability to scale. Right? So I can scale up the Unreal Engine where I can't add GPUs, I can add just more PCs in the cloud. So we created a fully automated system, and it was designed on that napkin a few years ago, and it's now, we've just wrapped on a feature film, and prior to that, in fact, I just had a message today to say the final render has gone on a very famous sci-fi UK show, family show, and we've just closed off on that, really really happy about that. And this is using near-time automated re-rendering. So you're on set, you record a take, you say cut, it triggers an automated re-render of that same content against the camera movement that you did. Right? This is really cool. And then you can get that straight away, or you can just do selects, or you can, take an EDL in even, so you can re-render the whole show as an EDL. You can re-render at different points in time using Perforce, the same, as you do as well. Perforce is version and source management, so we can render different points in time, which allows you to change, the content of the scene and re-render it. This opens up a lot of possibilities for using the Unreal Engine in visual effects, and it effectively democratizes visual effects. The show that I was referring to that we just delivered on, there's 250 visual effects shots in this one episode. That would have blown the budget for the whole series if it was done in a traditional visual effects way. So instead, they are now able to use this automated cloud-based re-render to deliver, I would say, near cinema quality visual effects, using Unreal Engine.
That's fantastic. I just want to make it clear when he's talking about some of these technologies. He did mention that whether it's a green screen stage or an LED stage, it works. You have workflows for both.
We do, yeah. In fact, we won the HPA award for that last year. We have a sort of hybrid workflow, which we call Smart Green, that combines green screen and LED technology. In-camera visual effects, the way I see it is, in-camera effects, visual effects with LED volumes brings a huge amount of positive things, but it also obviously limits what you can do later in post-production. And so we do want to have some kind of way of getting both, of having our cake and eating it. And there are various techniques for that. There's some are being presented here at the show. None of them are perfect, right? That's the reality yet. And actually, there are people that are attempting to do AI-based solutions to this problem. There are people that are doing quite clever frame interleaving solutions to the problem. None of them are quite there. But we will get there. And actually, I think the thing that we can take from in-camera visual effects production is about designing your visual effects earlier in the pipeline and using the sort of methodology of in-camera visual effects, but still with some green screen where you need it. That can be green on the LED wall that tracks the subject, or it can be just on, scheduling a production 2 weeks on a green screen stage and 2 weeks on an LED stage. But the principle of designing your assets and getting early sign-off in that visual art department, virtual art department early, means that your post-production has kind of moved from post to pre, and there's lots of really great benefits to that. And ultimately, when the director's looking at the monitor, they don't mind if it is an LED wall that has created that picture or a live previs with a live green screen key. They are interested in the story that's being told. So, we want to, as a technology company, be able to provide the right tools so that directors can hop between, and production teams can hop between those different virtual production techniques and leverage them as and when they need them.
Yeah, that's actually a good point. I have a solutions architect that works for me, Patrick Palmer. He's quite smart. But he had a quote the other day where he was just saying, he goes, the technology is not the story. The story is the story. And he keeps repeating that. And really, it's taking the complexity of the technology out of the way to enable these creators. So, with that, Niall, I'll throw it to you first. Where do you see your technology fitting in this space and enabling creatives, for when we get together, a couple years from now and do this panel again? Where are we going to be? How is Move AI going to help with that?
So I think I'll start with the workflow side of things first, because where we are 2 years from now is anyone's guess. But in terms of where it fits in terms of the workflow, I mean, ultimately, you're talking about the virtual art department, previs, you can now easily add mocap data in there, which means, animating things by hand is a skill, but it's hard, right? It's time consuming. And as you'll probably know, it takes a lot of people, right? Taking that element out allows you to iterate quicker. So you can then create motion capture relative to the scene you want to perform, relative to the movements you want to see people do, drop it straight into whichever environment you want. Ultimately, it's an FBX, USD file, so you can drop it in whichever virtual environment you want. And that allows you to create quicker. Now, ultimately, we also know that the real-time nature of a lot of the productions is necessary to have something in the studio, right? Now, again, as you were saying around the camera tracking data side of things, the real-time motion capture data can also be stored and used either post or it's just deriving real-time, either things like shadows, effects. Ultimately, once you have that data, you can then trigger a whole bunch of reactivity within your scene that you want, provided you have it. In terms of where we're going to be in 2 years' time, I mean, Move's 4 years old now, and we are looking at what we've done is we've got a couple of tracks, right? So one is the sort of higher end virtual production workflows that we're doing with Disguise, and we also have the mobile app workflow. What we are doing and sitting on top of there with the 20-odd thousand people who've signed up to the app and being able to scale it using AWS is that we are taking that data and building a generative AI database. So eventually what you'll be able to do is linking, as we were talking before, things like ChatGPT, and also what we want to do is actually trigger motion relative to motion, and I'll explain that in a second, where we're actually able to then generate motion on request. But you can imagine a world where some of the art department go, oh, actually, I want it to sort of move like this, and it will then send you back examples of that, or give me that in the style of Elvis, and it will adapt that style.
That's cool. I like that future. That's cool.
Yeah, and we, at AWS, we just finished a machine learning accelerator for startups in that particular area.
We just applied.
Did you burn somebody on the weekend?
I've burnt my boss, yeah.
No, that's fantastic. So USD, hopefully it's going to be easy, or is it going to be another one of those? We have many standards to choose from.
We've been working quite tightly with NVIDIA on that, around the Omniverse workflow, so whichever flavor NVIDIA are using for Omniverse, we're compatible with.
We are as well. I love USD. I think it's a real way forwards, and we're already, you can plug our tracking data straight into a USD scene. Absolutely.
I didn't mean to take us into hot USD talk, but I do want to hear from you as far as where you see the technology going in the next couple of years. What's our talk going to look like?
I think that the trend that I see with the visual effects side of things is that more decision making made earlier in the process, and if you take that to its kind of logical conclusion, then you end up with the shoot being the very last thing you do. So actually everything is already there, and perhaps it has Move AI-based actors, character actors in high-quality CG environments and in real environments. and then, the last part is you capture those unique human performances, which is more of an animation pipeline, actually. It's similar to an animation pipeline in that the storyboard, it is the movie, and it kind of grows in render quality and in, through that pipeline. That seems to be a trend that I see. I don't know if, we'll have to.
I think you're right about the technology. We can certainly demonstrate it, and we have the capabilities. We might have to have a few more discussions about a book about mice and cheese, but that's certainly part of it. Laura,
Yeah.
5 years. Where do you think this is all going?
Well, I mean, I absolutely agree with you. In starting all of that creative process really early and bringing all those teams together really early, bringing together the art department and the camera department along with the director and everybody else early on to really kind of bring that vision to life. And yes, the movie grows in quality in effectively an animation pipeline, right? And one of the nice things about Arch is you can build these environments and you can build them very quickly. So you can go from the morning not having a virtual art department, people working together, to the afternoon having all of that set and all of that ready to go. And those people can be anywhere in the world. So we figured out how to make sure that, if somebody's working in London and somebody's working in LA and somebody's working in Singapore, so that we can connect all of these people together. There's low latency, and we know the smart ways to move data, so people can share and they can collaborate together. One of the things that we just started to do now is we have connectivity to on-premises machines as well. So somebody may not want to put every single piece of this virtual art department or this creative process in the cloud because they have resources on premises. But what's nice about what we're doing and the direction we're going is we understand that people want to keep some resources on premises, but have all of their teams be able to access whatever box they need for whatever job they want to do. And that single pane of glass is what we're driving towards, and we're driving to make sure that that is there and available for creative processes for all sorts of companies and all sorts of teams that want to do this.
Thank you very much. Yeah, I would say, it's been a pleasure getting to know all of you because, at AWS, we're constantly talking about being customer obsessed. And I've seen that quality in all three of your companies. I mean, you're taking away a complex part, the undifferentiated heavy lifting of trying to work things out. I mean, I've watched mocap suits and the calibration components and that stuff, and the stuff you're doing is quite is quite slick.
And what we want to do is just remove the need, right? You just make all this content creation easier and faster and more accessible. That's it.
Well, and it's the same with James. When you allow someone to use a green screen and use a rough resolution, I always refer to it as a rough resolution game engine, where you have good enough capabilities so you can light the stage the way it needs to be and take away some of the tough parts that come into the post-production process. But then you're taking all that game data and putting it up and making those high quality plates. That's pretty. I was pretty impressed.
Well, and thank you for the support and for the platform, because we literally could not have done it without without those services. It is great to be able to just scale as and when you need to. We just wrapped on a feature film, and it's just about to go into post-viz. To give you an idea of the scale of that, was 48 days of principal photography that resulted in 7,478 recordings that are now in the cloud waiting to be rendered, that can be rendered on request and will be rendered at extreme high quality to form a final pixel on that movie. So, this is really working. It's, this is not future gazing. This is real, and it's now. Yeah.
I'm sorry. Is that a lot?
I thought it was a lot.
Laura, would you like the final word? It's the 100th year anniversary. What is how does this show and your experience with the show and all this kind of coming together, how do you feel about it?
The first time I came to NAB was probably about 20 years ago.
Same here?
Yeah, with a difference. My first software company, I came here, and what's so interesting now is to see really how the creative side of NAB has really blossomed, and there's so many tools, particularly for around creation and media and entertainment and being able to do all of this stuff really, really, really quickly.